What up, Jesse?
What up, Kev?
Welcome back.
Welcome back indeed.
And welcome back to everyone listening and watching. Welcome back to At the Table. It's been a really good week so far.
Yeah. I don't know how many people know, but we're leaving soon.
Yeah, we are leaving soon.
Like, by the time they listen to this episode, right, we'll be kind of traveling?
Oh, no. The day that this comes out, we'll be on a plane.
Yeah.
We can't, but I don't want to, spill the beans because then if we try to I guess we can spill the beans.
Tell them we're traveling. They'll find out where we're at. Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to set a destination yet, but this is going to be an amazing trip. This is one I've been looking forward to probably I don't think even more than Madagascar.
Yeah. I love it too because it's like people aren't going to be able to guess.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to guess this one. And I'll give a hint though. This is, if you're African American, this is probably about as close to our version of a Mecca you can possibly get.
That's true.
I feel like
that's true.
It's gonna put you in the realm, but the stuff that we get to do on this trip we've never done before, and it's just gonna be an amazing time. I've been thinking about it, like how emotional it may be. Well, just even reading about some of the things, just like, oh man, this is
be some hefty moments. Like that's for sure.
So I guess with that, what made you happy this week? Packing for this trip?
Yeah, I mean, prepping for the trip definitely made me happy. The other thing that made me happy though is the fam and I joined the YMCA. So got a little family gym membership now. So we've been a couple times in the last week since we joined, and it's just been a good time. Like the kids we get to drop them off. And the other thing that made me happy was getting to play basketball. And I was like, ooh, what's gonna happen? This is all these young bucks still in high school or maybe first couple years of college. And
did you get them?
Yeah. Oh.
Did you get them, Jesse? Did you get them?
Yeah. Came in there all unsuspecting in my running shoes. Didn't even have hooping shoes on. They're like, oh yeah, sure, we'll pick you up.
Woody Harrelson. This is even white man can't jump.
Yeah, that's how it goes, So it was a good time though. I told Abby, I was like, it was just different. Like I remember playing, because this is literally the same YMCA that I played in high school, in college. Like we're there every single day. And so to come back, I was like, yeah, it's a different style of game now. Before, I could keep up speed wise. Can't do that anymore with these high school kids, but they're not as strong as I am. So that makes a big difference.
That's right. Use that man weight.
Got that dad strength.
Yeah. Right. Hey, I'm all about humbling them.
That's right. I mean, I just don't want to go pulling a hammy like you did.
I'm not
trying to run and keep up with these kids.
Yeah. I mean, it could happen because let me tell you, you get hurt doing basic stuff.
Yeah.
Just jumping. Yeah. Bending down. Oh, man.
All the joints today are a little kind of like, ooh.
Oh my gosh. To that end, I started, one thing that made me happy was just getting back into working out.
Yeah.
A lot more because my hamstring is feeling better. So one of my inspirations has always been Brian Shaw, who's like, have you seen him?
Yeah.
He looks like the size of that refrigerator.
Pretty much.
Like he's just massive. Yeah. And so he had these like fat bells, which I also have. They wrap around your arm. They wrap around your hand. So they look like, just like, what is it? Mega Man. Remember that back in the day?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and he was just throwing them up and doing this stuff. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that as part of my hit. I'm gonna do that. Man, I did that, Jesse. And I mean, they look big on his hand. So I'm pretty sure his were around.
His hands probably like the size of my head.
They are. Yeah. No, literally. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, he's probably throwing around like 90 pounds a piece on those things, right? And he's just going on his legs and throwing them up and doing like that. So I have some, and my middle pair is like 45 pounds. So I'm like, I can do this. So what I would do is I'd run, sprint a little bit on the treadmill, hop off, and then do 5 sets of 10, and for each minute on the minute. I only lasted 2 rounds. Supposed to be doing like 3 to 5. I only lasted 2. When I tell you, I have been so sore. Like I thought, I was like, man, did I fall? I literally woke up and like, did I fall? I'm serious. I'm going through the day. I was like, maybe I fell again.
When did I fall? When did I trip?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on?
I was like, was that 7-minute workout this? And it was. So,
oh boy,
happy to be back, but I'm also, it was like a little bit sore, but that's also the indication that, all right, Kevin, you're doing something. You got the muscle stimulated. So if anything, it's motivation for me to keep going with it. And that was good, but yeah. I'm aging, and that's okay. That is a wonderful thing.
You gotta accept it. It's okay.
That's right.
It's quite all right.
Can't do it like I used to, but I'm still doing something, right?
Oh, here's one more funny story from the gym. What happened yesterday? We finished playing a game, and this kid, he walks kind of over towards Abby. Abby was sitting on the bleachers watching us play, and he said something to her. And all his friends started laughing. Bro, what are you doing? Oh my God, stop.
He's trying to okay.
He hit on Abby. And so I walked up real swiftly to him and pushed him in his chest. I was like, hey, that's my wife you're talking about. He got real serious. That fear of God moment where he was like, oh my God, are you serious? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. Don't you? And I was just like, I'm just kidding, man. But seriously, don't.
Because I'll
never say that again.
No. Yeah. Wait, what did he say to Abby?
He said, he called her. He was just saying hey, what's up, beautiful? Something like that, trying to hit it. And Abby, she had her headphones and was on her phone, and she just looked up and kind of waved.
Hey,
looked back
she didn't know what he's saying.
She didn't even know what he said. She had no idea what was happening, but the kid's face is what got me.
Yeah.
It was that total uh-oh.
Oh no.
So that
what was that? What was that? Was that the Dave Chappelle Comedy Central? And at this point, he knew that he effed up. It pauses.
Yep.
When keeping it real goes wrong.
Yep. So that was entertaining.
That's good, man. Humbling Gen Z in any way we can.
Yeah, that's right.
I have 3 big things to talk about that I thought people should know about. One is about ChatGPT. We talked about that last week, and I thought it was hey, this is a pretty cool application of it because I think some people may have been kind of iffy, even myself. So I just want to show you how they're using that technology. Another one I think that deals with a whole lot of people that maybe listen to this with their parents and Alzheimer's.
Okay,
that we should know about some of the leading research.
Okay.
And the last one said, I want to really unpack that one. So I'm going to substitute my time for my rant for that one. So that way it's not too long. But I think I have to have some time to build it because it's a really good one. So let's start out first with the Chat GPT AI and machine learning. So what they're doing right now is they are finding out a way to stimulate people's brains that have either Parkinson's or dystonia and using AI to do that. Now, historically, what they've done is that a doctor has to go in there and they will using the MRI stuff to look at different parts of the brain and to stimulate. And it's those stimulation things that are actually going to help some of the abnormal patterns and the functions of the brain function normally, right? So it's this process is really labor intense. They have to kind of find it and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's been used for not only for Parkinson's and dystonia, but also for depression and OCD. But it just takes up a lot of time. And also there's the error and whatnot. But the good thing about this, before we get into the AI portion of this, is that if it doesn't work, it's reversible. So they can take out the electrodes, I think, that are put on there, and they can be turned on and off. So it's not something that's going to be permanent to people. And this whole deep stimulation process is called a neurostimulator. And
it's what Elon's trying to do, basically.
Oh, is that
the Neuralink stuff? Have you heard of that?
No, maybe so.
So it's basically something that would be implanted into your brain, and they think it's a way to cure paralysis or stuff like that, where the computer processing is getting fast enough to where it could compete with the human brain and how it works. So they think there's a way to, the example of being paralyzed, you'd be able to walk again kind of thing.
Yeah, well, then this would be tangential to that thing. Yeah. But what I thought was interesting is how they're using AI to go ahead and do that. So, 2 ways is using it for targeting. Yeah. Localization of that. So being able to with machine learning and all the processing of other past data, having the computer be able to go in there better because of increased modeling from the MRI stuff. Yeah, they can go in there and they could target which parts of the brain to stimulate, so it can be a little bit more accurate that way. Cool. Wow. Yeah, right. Now there'll still be that person involved, but But just using the ongoing like research and that to be able to do that, I think that would be that's pretty cool. And I think again the mitigating factor there is that they can turn them on and off, so it doesn't always have to be permanent. So if it's not getting intended results or it has a negative effect, they can always turn them off. But since there is like machine learning, if it's improving, then also the AI can improve the the targeting and localization, which leads into the second thing is how they can use AI to program the machine to do it seamlessly. And so what they did was they took this group of patients with Parkinson's, and they used all their MRI data, and they were able to predict the optimal stimulation parameter for those patients. So they took that and they applied it to another group, and seemingly worked a little bit well. Using AI technology to go and do that. And so they said that even though it's not like 100%, like it's great, because some patients may need like a little bit more if the disease progresses. The whole promise of it is the machine learning, and that it could enable a much more complex parameter adjustments. So in this scenario, I think that, if we're iffy about, we don't want to relinquish control, I think there is some benefit to that, just because we want the machine is using information to to make its decisions, and the more info it has,
better it's gonna be.
Which also kind of leads me into this other part. I kind of was thinking about how some of the the people who have been most critical of ChatGPT and AI have been the ones who have created it, and they talked about the machine learning that it's basically, they made it sound like, what is that movie with Will Smith, I, Robot?
All of a sudden a flip of a switch is going to happen and
they run everything. So I'm like, well, how far down this rabbit hole of machine learning are they going to go? But as long as there can be the human interaction to turn stuff on and off, I think it should be okay.
When can it no longer be unplugged? That's what I want to know. Like, because that's the thing, it still needs a power source, right? Like a computer still has to be plugged into something to run
for the time being, create itself.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, well, if it has some self-sustaining energy source or finds a way to always feed itself power, then we're screwed.
And then we're back at square one.
Then we're fighting robots.
Okay. Next thing, Alzheimer's. I think this is something that affects many people. It's just growing, and especially with our age group. I think we're getting into the point where our parents are getting a little bit older, and they're experiencing some health, related issues, and things like this is just a lot more common these days. But what I found was most promising about this is that before, they've been using the gut microbiome to predict a whole lot of stuff, like depression, acne, digestive issues, even inflammation in the body. But there is preliminary evidence right now to find a link between gut biome and Alzheimer's. So they were doing a couple studies because this is did you know that dementia is the 7th leading cause of death?
No. 7th?
Yeah. And Alzheimer's disease, like about 60 to 70% of those cases are like dementia cases in 80 patients. I didn't know that. I was like, that's a lot. Which is why I found this article really intriguing. Like, this is affecting a whole lot of people. But what they were doing is they did some of these cross-sectional studies in which they were getting the microbiome from people who had AD and people who did not. And they were looking at some of and what I should say is the preclinical AD. So it's maybe just not there, but they've got some of like the genetic markers in order to have AD, so they're predisposed to it. And they were looking at some of the microbiome, and so they found some like relationships and some differences there. And so they can't for sure say that some of the microbiome changes in the gut are causing dementia or the other way around. But they did notice some of these differences. And so what they're doing now is they're commissioning a lot more studies to find out if there is some type of causal relationship in microbiome and dementia and AD. Because then it can be a better predictor, and then also it can help people to safeguard, like that's why they're telling you to eat certain foods if you're depressed and, or if you have acne. whatnot because of what it does inside the inside of your gut. So gut health becomes really important, which just kind of underscores everything we do.
Yeah.
Like what you eat is important.
Yeah, what you put in the body.
Yeah.
It's what you could get out.
And this kind of leads into the other article that I want to really just unpack for everyone, because I think that in me sharing this article, and there's another one that I was going to share today, and it says like the overuse of marijuana is linked to surgery complications and death.
Okay.
We hear these headlines, right? And what happens? We're like, oh, we gotta start doing this. We gotta stop doing that. We can't eat this anymore. We can't eat that. And it's something that I've been chewing on for a minute now. I'm just like, when I go on social media and people are posting things and saying you shouldn't be eating this, it's because this study says blah blah blah. And I remember on my book tour, one thing that I had in there, this is back in 2018, at every stop, I wanted to touch on the fact of like, be careful of what you are reading. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of fear and phobia around food when there's not really like a lot of evidence. And I gave this this example when like there was that Mountain Dew drink out there. First off, no one's saying that you should be drinking soda and beverages and stuff like that. But there was this competitor to Mountain Dew, is called Surge. Yeah. You remember Surge? Oh yeah. It was, for all you young kids, it was huge.
Before like energy drinks were a thing.
Right.
Surge was it. That's what you were taking.
Yeah, it was like, it was amazing, right? It tasted great. It was a little bit more sugary than Mountain Dew. It was more vibrant too in the color. It was like a bright yellow neon. So you're basically drinking science, but it was great science.
Delicious science.
Yeah. Yeah. And then an article came out and saying, it shrinks your balls.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that? I have never seen a brand tank so fast. Yep. Everyone's like, "You're drinking that, man? Man, it shrinks your balls, bro. You gotta be careful." And everyone just stopped drinking it. And then once you kind of dove a little bit deeper into that, it was like, and I'm gonna get this wrong, but it was like some wild amount of consumption. Like if you're drinking like close to like a gallon a day for this many days, I'm like, well, who is drinking that? Yeah. Who is? But the article was what is linked to shrunken testicles,
which is all we see these days.
Yeah, fear
videos and articles like that, and it's surrounding telling you not to have so and so because it'll do this.
Yes,
and when you have people that look at it by the actual numbers, most of the time it is something like that. Like where, what's one I saw? Don't eat Cheerios.
Oh gosh,
because there's carcinogens in them.
Well,
there is.
This is a great segue to this article.
Yeah.
So this article, you all, I encourage everyone to go and read it because she just does such an excellent job of breaking this down. Yeah. It is by an author, well, not an author, but a journalist, Amanda Mull, and she writes for The Atlantic. Now, The Atlantic is a premium publication, so you do need to be subscribed, but they have a trial period. Yeah. The article is called "Being Alive is Bad for Your Health." It is worth you signing up to read.
Love that.
Just to read it.
Yeah.
So let me just kind of walk you through the framework of it, and then we'll just unpack it because it's a great article to unpack. So she talks about how she grew up loving Diet Coke, right? She would have one all the time and yada, yada, yada. And then, and she even got it for like a birthday and like Christmas gifts and stuff like that because she really loved it. And then she started to hear all these things about people who gave up the diet drinks and they experienced like better sleep and better skin and better energy, right? So she just decided to try it too, right? So she, because, all this stuff was coming out. And so she, like on a whim, she decided to start drinking seltzer. So La Croix, whatever it's called, however you say that, things like that. And so she was like, it's not so bad. And what I realized is that I just like the, how it was cold and it was,
that refreshing cold,
spritzy.
Spritz.
You just loved that, right? And so she was like, all right, I'm going to have all these other health benefits. To her surprise, that stuff didn't really come, right? But she said maybe if there's anything, there was like a difference in the caffeine because, that stuff has caffeine. And she said, but that was it. But she didn't experience all these other things. So why this is important, the context that she's bringing up is that by the time this podcast comes out on July 14th, the World Health Organization, they have a committee there, an agency there. It's called the International Agency for Research on Cancer. they are going to be declaring on July 14th that aspartame, a sweetener used in Diet Coke, is possibly carcinogenic to humans. And there's so much to unpack just there in this proclamation, right? Because and maybe you felt this way too, that there's so many things we got to worry about. You can't eat. You gotta stay away from fake sweeteners, from real sugar. Wine is bad now. Butter, and she's making all these cases, and I'm like, yep, not in my head. Coffee, fat, everything, vegan food, And she says that the issue with that is that the more warnings there are out there, the less actionable things we have to actually go to do to safeguard. And so, except that you just start feeling bad about what you're eating, which linked to social media, that's what happens. In fact, can I just do like a little quick tangent for a second?
Please do.
There was a fitness influencer that I follow, this woman, and she's very popular, and she is very, very, very thin. She was not always like that. And I want to point that out because I think that's important. And so a lot of women strive to look like that. And I'm talking about rib thin. Whatever. It's your thing. She gets on there and she's like, let me tell you one thing that I will never buy from any grocery store. And she goes and she pours out this orange juice.
Oh, no.
And it's like, I will never buy this. This is so processed and there's so much sugar. Y'all, look at it. This is 24 grams of sugar in 1 cup of orange juice. It's just not good for you. I mean, you'd be better just eating an orange. And plus, whenever they make this stuff, actually the heat process takes out all the nutrients. So no, don't buy this at all. And it was a brand that said like no sugar added, but she was saying that. And I was thinking like, see, this is why you don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, because, and I went to do this and I was going to send it to her, but I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that behind the scenes. But it's like, Kevin, let me just go ahead and look this up. So I use a USDA thing to calculate all the calories and macros for things, right? So when you squeeze an actual orange juice, an orange, right? 1 orange has about 8 grams of carbs, 8 grams of sugar, right? It's 1.
Just 1.
How many do you need for a cup? Think maybe a couple, right? So an 8-ounce glass,
It starts to add up, doesn't it?
8-ounce glass of orange juice has 24 grams of sugar. And I already knew that and was like, you obviously don't cook or do anything like that because those are the macros for an actual orange juice. Now, I'm not taking away from what she's saying there, but I kind of am, right? You're creating like this phobia around food. So now I can't drink orange juice now. Yes, you can.
We like to know that information, so we'll see a video like that. And if that is our proclivity to be nervous about foods and be nervous about the things we're consuming, all of a sudden we have this info to share with all these people as well. Guess what? I know that the orange juice is bad for you. And it's like, take a pause and listen to what you're saying right now. Like, I understand there's heavily processed food out there. But we're talking about a product that says no sugar added. When you look at it, it's like you said, you can use some critical thinking to say, okay, how much sugar is just in 1 orange if I were to squeeze and make juice? Okay, now I need to fill up a whole thing to match whatever this orange juice container is. And it's probably
an 8-ounce
up, right?
Yeah. It's like,
I came across this account. I don't want to butcher his name. It's just IDZ, I think, Dr. Ids.
Oh,
He's based out of Europe.
Yep. I heard about him.
He does videos all the time, just calling out these food influencers that are scaring and fear-mongering people into not trying things, making sure you're picking wild-caught salmon and not farm-raised, and like the orange juice stuff, and telling people, these people that are out there saying don't eat Cheerios, like I was saying earlier, because there's carcinogens in them. And it's like, you'd have to eat about 3,000 pounds of Cheerios for it to actually have an effect on you.
A gallon of surge.
Yeah.
But one thing that I learned in grad school, and which everyone should know this, like when you're looking at stats, correlation is not causation. You need to get that down in your head. And most things, whenever you read these studies, they're not saying this causes that, because there's not a lot of definitive evidence to be able to do that. Because there could be other factors that influence. So when they're coming out with these studies, they're just looking at some of the similarities and the commonalities. Now, there has been studies that showed that regular sustained diet consumption has been linked to weight gain, type 2 diabetes, and increased risk of stroke, among other things. And so what's interesting, but you can't take that and be like, that's linked to Diet Coke, just because, my first reaction to that is, well, one thing about some of the diet beverages and the sweeteners is that they aren't satisfying.
Yeah.
Sugar is satisfying. That's why when you eat a piece of cake, you're full. When you eat some real ice cream, you're just, it's like, man, that was good.
Yeah.
Because you got real fat and real sugar and everything else.
Yeah.
Is that stuff good? I'm not saying that it's good. I'm saying it's satisfying.
Yep.
Sweeteners are not.
Yep.
That's why they're 0 calories.
Yep.
So what happens when you eat something that's not satisfying? What does it do? And it's sweet. You chase it.
Yep.
You're like, oh,
I need something else.
I'm going to try that, because you're trying to fill that. So thinking, if people are doing that, and they're also, if you're drinking Diet Coke, maybe you're doing that just because, first off, which is another big issue with these studies, is that why was Diet Coke invented in the first place?
As a healthy alternative to regular.
There you go. So how can you have these studies come out? Because for decades, you've been telling people that you've had all these concerns about, sugar. So this is why you have the diet drinks.
Yeah.
And now the diet drinks are bad. And you're thinking that stuff is linked to it. There could be other things, right? And so there's actually little evidence that suggests that diet soda is solely responsible for any of those issues. I'll say that again for people that are listening, that there's little evidence to show. And so now, moving on to this, right, with their announcement on the 14th coming, when they say possibly carcinogenic, what does that mean to you? Maybe just to the average consumer, or just to you?
Yeah, my initial thoughts is just that it's something that's like toxic for us. That's it. Yeah.
That it's going to be a significant danger to you.
Yeah.
But she was pointing out that her colleague back in 2015 did this deep dive into the WHO and the IARC to determine what these things are.
Yeah.
These are the things that consumers don't know about and that journalists don't report on.
Okay.
So there are actually 4 different categories for how they classify carcinogenic things. There are 4 categories. There is group 1, which is carcinogenic. All right. There is group 2A, which is probably carcinogenic.
Okay.
There is group 3, group 2B, which is number 3, as possibly carcinogenic. And then there's group 3, which is unclassified.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting about this is that really doesn't have anything to do with carcinogenics, have anything to do with the carcinogens, but how definitive the agency believes the evidence is for any level of increased risk. So the one that we're talking about is actually very, very small, very tiny. And so, but they're grouping things in there. And so all of a sudden people are changing up all their stuff just because of something that is not really definitive at all. And they aren't definitive. They're just saying possibly. But you have no idea what that means. You just read, oh my God, this can possibly cause cancer. Actually, no. They're saying that our research is, it's less definitive about that. And that's what's reported. But that's not reported out. And so all of these categories just basically show you just how sure or unsure they are that there is a risk associated with a thing at all. Don't just put that out there, because people are going to say, I got to stop doing this. Well, now I'm not saying that you should keep on drinking diet soda. I'm thinking that you just have to be a little bit more cautious about why you're doing what you're doing. This is what even like nutritionists will tell you. Even if you're eating like a piece of cake, you could maybe stop after three bites. Why? Because after that, you're just trying to chase that high that you had before at the very top, that first bite, and you can't get that back. You know what I mean? Like you could just stop. It's hard too because it tastes really good, but you're trying to chase that initial
Which is why people say it's like the same thing as like a drug high that you're chasing or something like that, because it's satisfying something. Dopamine receptors are going off, and you're like, do that again.
Good stuff, right? So what this means, you all, for this article is that the actual substance of the warning, it's about the limited evidence that those sweeteners have in aiding in weight loss.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which is completely different than like carcinogenic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at all these things they're talking about, oh, this could be a cause of heart disease and type 2 diabetes and premature death and all that, they're just murky correlations because, like you said, they could be involved in other activities that are not good for their health, and you're just seeing that.
Yeah.
Which is why you have to just look at stuff like, what do you do? So, and the media is to blame somewhat for this. Actually, not even somewhat, a lot.
Yeah. For
how this stuff kind of spreads. I think we talked about this before. Like, I really wish they would actually talk about, like, even just not this stuff, but where the information's coming from. Like, who commissioned that study to say that meat was bad?
Yeah.
Who commissioned that? Like, seriously, let's go down that rabbit hole and see.
Yeah.
And who did that? Maybe it's some, I don't know, a plant group that's all of a sudden. Yeah. But this data could be maybe factual, but it also could be kind of lends itself to like, was it slanted because of this angle? You're doing things that actually support your own cause, which is, I think, is really important. So she ended with like this quote that it reminded me of something from The Incredibles, the first one. And she said, like, when everything is an ambiguously urgent health risk, nothing is. Eventually you kind of feel that way, Yeah,
it kind of cancels out.
Yeah. So, like, what do you do?
Yeah.
And so, and I think that's a question that we should all like explore.
Yeah.
The way that I do that myself is that I tend to have a lot of variety in my diet. Yeah. Not just in what I eat, but how I prepare the foods.
Yeah.
So I'm just getting a wide variety of nutrients and things. I may not look like one of those cover models and stuff, but I can tell you at least from my fat and body scan, it was great. I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
You can supplement and take certain medications for you and your markers, but for the most part, just eat a balanced diet. Follow a balanced nutrition plan.
Yeah.
Don't cook everything in the oven. Don't put everything in the microwave. Don't put everything on the stove. Just eat a variety of things. You don't really have to worry about that. Yeah. Some people are predisposed to other things. You need to eat for that, right?
Yeah.
But
just know that body types look different, like all sorts of different ways to look, and it's the way you're just naturally made. It's the way God made you. Like, you don't have to try to achieve to look like someone out there when it's not even physically possible for your body.
Yeah, absolutely.
Type, you're beautiful in your skin.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to a doctor yesterday. We were going over some of my health markers, and my HDL, my cholesterol, is just like astronomically high. And I'll go down my diet, and he's like, "Yeah, it's one of those things where I think genes are involved because my mom's family, super high. My grandma had heart disease and things like that. So I do have to take that into consideration, and try to craft my diet around that, but there's nothing that I can do about that.
Yeah.
And maybe take some medication, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Similar with me and like blood pressure, I think.
Yeah.
Is a hereditary thing. And so it's just like, diet and exercise is going to help, but sometimes it's going to be higher.
Yeah. It's just going to be elevated. So nothing you can really do about it, but just know that you got to watch your diet because of that, but it's just always like that. So I just found, I wanted to end with this article because as we move forward and I share other articles with Health in the News, I want us all to be thinking about this article by Amanda because it just sums up so well the tragedy of social media when it comes to health, the tragedy of the news whenever it comes to health. Because, like she said, being alive is bad for your health. You can't do this anymore.
I was going to get some vitamin D in the sun. No, you can't have it too much vitamin D.
Because it's possibly carcinogenic.
No, not the sun.
Sweet. Well, that wraps up Wellness in the News this week. Do you feel there's not enough time in your schedule to meal prep? Then I got you, fam. Today's episode is brought to you by the Fit Cook Meals, delicious flavor-packed meals fit for a busy lifestyle. When I started sharing recipes and health tips over 10 years ago, I always wanted to launch a prepared meal service for those needing some extra help keeping in line with wellness goals. So I've partnered with registered dietitians and nutrition experts around the country to curate a menu of nutritionally dense meals that fit any style of eating, including low-carb, gluten-free, plant-based, and even Mediterranean. All meals are chef-prepared, not in some huge factory, and they're made in restaurants and commissaries and ghost kitchens in your area, so you get the freshest meal experience as possible. Meals are lower sodium, so you can season to taste, and most importantly, to both you and me, they are flavor-packed. Head over to meals.fitmencook.com to get started with your first set of meals. You receive a discount when you sign up for a weekly subscription. Again, that is meals.fitmencook.com. Now, back to the table. Welcome back to At the Table.
Welcome back.
All right, Jesse, I'm going to flip it to you. I took up all my time with that last article, so I am yielding the floor to you. What's been on your mind?
What's been on my mind? I mean, just this travel that we got coming up, honestly.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I feel blessed and honored to be able to get to go see a part of the world that would have never imagined visiting. And I'm just hopeful and excited for what's to come. Stories we're going to be able to get to tell and people we'll be able to meet. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just excited.
That's
expecting
good.
a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah.
And yeah, praying that travel goes well and
And no
all that
cancellations,
stuff, yeah. I feel like the travel world out there today is
so
unexpected.
Yeah, that's good, man. I share, the excitement, and I find myself doing a lot more to prepare for this trip than others.
Yeah.
I think just because of the moment that it represents, but also, to let people in too. Like, I've talked a lot about like what's next for me, and I can definitely feel and see a change in what makes me happy. And talking to my dad, like this past week, he said something that I thought was just really good. He was just praying with me and praying for me, and he just said, like, you need to embrace what is next, and if that's not what you're currently doing right now, then that's not what you're currently doing.
Yeah.
And good. So just giving myself permission to do that. And so I share that sense of excitement because I think that it's in the doing of things that clarity is revealed, that pathways are revealed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, and I don't think I have a rant on anything really this week. Just excited and expectant for what's to come.
So mental health check-in. I've got a little something for mental health check-in.
Okay.
All right.
What you got?
There was this article, y'all. I'm gonna share it on my threads.
Hey,
on my Instagram threads. Wait, is it Instagram? It's Meta Threads or just Threads?
Just Threads, right?
Yeah, just Threads. Yeah. I'm gonna share it on my Threads. But I thought this was really good. It's 5 tips for checking in with loved ones struggling with their mental health.
Yeah.
It's on Mind, Body, Green. And this one is by Hannah Fry. I guess that's the way you say it. F-R-Y-E, Fry. And it resonated with me because I'm like, ooh, this needs to be, I wish I could just put this up and just, here you go.
Yeah.
So there are 5 tips for checking in. The first one is phone call first, text second. And sometimes people may not want to talk. And so when you call them and they don't pick up, that's fine. Just text and don't send something like, which I'm so glad she said this, checking in on you. I hate those texts. Hate it.
Yeah.
Family and friends, if you're hearing that right now, I hate it. I hate those. Absolutely hate them.
Let the world know.
Yes. Because there's so much to respond to or whatnot, or they just, it's just, like, it's just loaded, and actually in this article, if you scroll to the bottom, they have some text that you can send.
That's cool.
You can practice. So I thought that was pretty cool. The second one is to avoid yes or no questions. So instead of the how are you, I highly agree, because what people will do when they want to check in, especially people that like pat themselves on the back, well, I checked in like that, but they'll say, how you doing? Or, they'll expect you to write something like really long. Yeah. And then they'll say, all right, cool. Like, it's just, so
they checked off their little box of checking in, and
that's why they stay on red sometimes. I'm like, tell me how you doing. You tell me how you do. You know what I mean? Anyway, but here's some of the questions that they said. What was the highlight of your day? What did you do over the weekend? What's on your calendar for the week? What's been on your mind lately?
Yeah.
Those are really good questions to ask.
Well, it's just conversational, right?
Yeah. And it eases into the conversation about like, what's been up with you?
Yep.
But don't start out with that. Okay. Reiterate. Number 3 is reiterate that you're happy to help.
Yeah.
And so don't see. I mean, this is kind of Captain Obvious, but don't say something like, "I'm going out of my way to do this," or "I'm not sure I can make that work." I'm happy to help. I'm just here for you.
Yeah.
I care about you, and it's worth it. One thing that I've done too, especially when people are going through something, and they don't want to ask for help. Mm-hmm. I'll just say, "Hey, I'm headed to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. What can I grab for you while I'm there?"
Yep.
And then that's just about it. So that way they don't think they're being like an inconvenience to me. And sometimes when I'm saying that, I'm not even at the grocery store yet.
I'm just saying it.
I'm just saying it. So that way they can let me know.
Softer approach, right?
Yeah. Just to. Yeah. And that just shows that, hey, I can swing by too. I'm already here.
Yeah.
I have to go there anyway. So tell me what I can, grab for you.
Perfect.
And people will, and then I get a lot more response that way. Like, oh, appreciate that. If you could just do this. I say, all right, cool. I got it. I'll put it right now in the cart.
Yeah.
And I'll go to the store. And then I'll go to the store and get it.
Yep. Easy enough.
Yeah. Yeah. And I care about you and it's worth it is another thing you could say.
Yeah.
Number 4, someone's going to get their feelings hurt with this, but don't make it about yourself.
Good.
So
that's real good.
So you need to hear this. You start opening up only for the person to kind of turn it around and begin to talk about the things that are going on with them.
There are people in my life that I don't ever bring up anything personal for that very reason, because there will be no listening. There will be no empathy. It will just be them talking about a problem that is somehow worse. Like it's some weird competition to say like my problems are worse than yours. And it's like, okay, well, there was no point in this. You're not a safe person to talk to anymore.
Woo!
So
I gotta pay you off.
Let that be a word of encouragement for someone out there. Don't tell your stuff to just anybody.
Yeah. And if you listen and you got your feelings hurt by what Jesse said, he's definitely talking to you then.
Yeah. And I'm not talking about my wife either.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Put that out there.
Yeah.
You'll end up on Instagram with one of them poems about you. Abby's a writer.
Yep.
I'm going to get you.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this article says it's not about always finding the right words, but more about communicating.
Yeah.
A spirit of care and concern.
Yeah.
And, I just think that's the most important thing. I feel like people that have kind of been through something, or there's people that struggle with like depression and anxiety, I think they're a little bit better at that because they understand like how that feels.
Yeah.
And so, you don't always have to have an answer for something. You can just listen. The goal, he says, or the author says, is just to generally help so that way they feel less alone.
Yeah.
So they said if your friend or loved one asks you if you have any advice or if you can relate to them, then you can share your experience.
Yeah.
But just doing that, like I had someone do that out of the blue recently and just trying to catch up with a friend and just let them know like what was going on. And it really became it was a whole thing about them. And I was like, oof, can't wait to get off this call.
Yeah.
And I was just calling just so that way the friend wouldn't feel that something, that something else was going on. I was like, I'm pretty stressed out about this. And then it totally turned around to be about them. And it was very odd. But like you said, it's just like, there you go. Good. All right. Number 5 is to avoid blanket statements.
Tell this one to the faith community out there.
Oh, that's what you just said. That's the first one on here.
Yeah.
That's the first one on here.
The king of blanket statements.
He said the first thing is like avoid surface level blanket responses such as I'm praying for you. I'm keeping you in my thoughts.
Yep. Yep.
Of course, these statements are better than nothing, but probably not the most effective way to really connect with people.
Yeah.
So instead ask things like, how can I support you through this?
Yeah.
Which is just a great question.
Yeah.
And
I feel like for me personally, I don't want people's lives to feel like inconvenienced by something I'm going through.
Yeah.
Like I just would rather them continue life as normal. Like, let's go do the thing we were planning to do. Like, let's go just continue our normal friendship and then just kind of naturally let the conversations happen.
That's good.
Not, hey, let's make a designated date to go talk about this specific thing. It's like, okay, it's a lot of pressure. Like,
yes,
I don't know how much I want to tell you. Like,
yeah. For real.
Yeah.
Just creating it. sometimes the best conversations are when you say nothing at all. I love those conversations. I love those people. And in fact, I've got a handful of those people in my life, and that's why they're in my life. Like, I don't have to say anything. I can just be, and it's easy. It's nice.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It said, this approach is a much more compassionate and actionable, and it leaves room for someone to ask for help and the support that they need that'll truly help them to cope. Yeah. So I thought those 5 things: phone call first, text second, avoid yes or no questions, reiterate that you're happy to help, don't make it about yourself, and avoid blanket statements. Yeah. A great article. Mindbodygreen.com, y'all. It's 5 tips for checking in with your loved ones struggling with their mental health.
Gotta throw those on that Threads.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw them on Threads. So, I wonder if the article pops up when I do that.
That'd be cool if you could link it and it would post it.
Let's try right now.
Yeah.
All right. It posted.
Boom.
Hey, I think you're my first follow on Threads.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
I was like, I started to say, like, because you can import all your followers on Threads. And I was like, no, I ain't going to do that. I don't want to do that. Let me see who's going to make the listens. Not. Yeah. Let everyone follow. But cool, man. Cheers to an amazing week. Cheers to y'all listening.
Yeah.
And next time you will hear from us, we will be abroad, and we're going to have our first abroad episode.
Yeah. So follow along.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Thank you for listening to At the Table. Remember, you can catch up and watch full episodes on YouTube on the Fit Men Cook channel. And if you enjoy the podcast, please consider giving us a 5-star review on whatever platform you're listening on. In the meantime, be kind to yourself, to each other, and break bread. See you next week.